Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Anu. I'm a holistic mindset and life coach, and I'm here to remind you that you can be, do, and have anything that you want. And today we're going to do a little candid video. I want to talk a little bit about myself, my journey, what led me to where I am today, why did I decide to get into mindset coaching, and a little glimpse into my life. So the channel name of my coaching business is called Anuyu, which is a new you. I wanted a piece of my name in the business because it's also my father's name, and everybody would call him Anu as well. And for me, it was a bit sentimental. And at the same time, the entire concept of having a new version was the most crucial factor that I wanted to address, irrespective of anyone's situation. To be a new version, a new self, was extremely important for me. I do not take the full credit for the name. A very dear friend of mine, we were sitting and brainstorming, and I had a couple of names, and this is what we finalized: a new you. Now, why exactly a new you? If I give a little glimpse into my background, when I was growing up, I was extremely shy. I was introvert. In school, I did not have many friends. I loved living in my books. I have two beautiful brothers who were and still are my best friends. We were very close to our parents. We still are, I would say. And we grew up in this safe little haven. And of course, I also had my challenges growing up. But for me, my entire security was my family. My father was extremely close to me, and since I was the only girl with two boys, I think there was a little bit of bias there, and my brothers won't be ashamed to admit it, but I had a beautiful, beautiful bond with my father. And he was a doctor, and he had his practice. But at the same time, I think for me, he was more of an alchemist, a healer, if you would say so. And my mother, on the other hand, was this most innocent, wonderful person I could ever come across. And most of the times, I would say, I don't think she's a human. I think she's an angel incarnated in the form of a human. She was so loving and forgiving, and the kindest soul I could ever meet in this lifetime. And with this environment, growing up with spiritual background, coming from India, where you have major religions, and we have experienced some religious clashes growing up. But my father, thanks to his understanding of humanity and consciousness and spirituality, it was very common for us to meditate, to look at the bigger picture, to have faith and conviction and not get conditioned by society as much as we could. Of course, we had our own lives, and there were certain things that we picked up, own personal experiences growing up, school, and few things that you cannot control, but just get exposed to. But the foundation remained quite strong, I would say. I got into medical college because I always wanted to be like my father. And in 2010 or 11, when my father got diagnosed with lung cancer, I think my world paused. I was somehow having some notes of being a pessimist in my life, but that's the time when one of my best friends introduced me to the book called The Secret, which now I think everyone knows about. It's by Rhonda Byrne. And that was my first exposure to something esoteric or spiritual, not coming from my father's side. So this was my personal venture, or my first stepping stone into understanding spirituality, I would say. And I read The Secret, I think I was 19 or 20 years old. And I applied the principles, and I said, yeah, gratitude changes everything. So we get into it. And in 2012, my father passed on. that's the time when I think I had my first big crisis when it comes to faith and believing in certain things and believing in God or universe. But I still went on, and because of his principles and his teachings and how death should be looked at as a form of transformation, and that's when your journey begins and all of that, I still try to apply that and not feel this pain of separation, basically. Of course, I had my reaction to it, my mechanism of dealing with grief, and I became a workaholic. And I dived deep into working long hours. I would come home just for sleeping, couple of hours, and I was back on my feet again. And I did see my mother take the grief too closely, and somehow I think we had a little trouble in paradise. But we still managed to stay beautifully in love with each other and support each other. And soon I graduated, I got my degree, I started practicing, and I got into the field of cancer without any surprise because I wanted to understand the malady very closely. So pain, suffering became the topic of my life. And I worked in palliative care, so I really worked closely with terminally ill cancer patients. Before that, when I was still in medical college, I got into emergency medicine. And that's where I saw, again, people battling for life. So I experienced a lot of deaths in my life. I experienced a lot of grief, especially with cancer patients and palliative care. It's just not the patient whom I saw suffer, but also the relatives and the family members and everyone together. And I think it's a very benevolent job to do, to hold somebody who's in pain, hold their hand while they're suffering, was my biggest blessing and my biggest achievement, I would say, from that period of my life. Then cut forward to 2017, I moved to Switzerland and I did some additional studies. That was the time when I was homesick. I was not acknowledged or recognized as a doctor anymore because of my education from India. It was not valid, and if at all I were to practice again, meant either I study medicine all over again, which is 5.5 years, or I do certain tests which were only in German, and of course I did not speak German. So I thought, okay, I've done my best in the field of medicine, and I had overworked myself. So I could let that part of my life rest. And slowly, I think I got into understanding manifestation, because when I moved here, I was doing odd jobs. So what I wanted was manifest job, money, things like that. So very materialistic, and also relationship, having friends, working with different brands for my other channel, because I used to do some other makeup review things previously. And it all worked. So I got into manifestations, I got into understanding different techniques and whatnot, and vision boards and gratitude journals, and this meditation in the morning, this in the evening, affirmations, name it, and I've done it. And in 2020, my mother transcended, which was very sudden. And we had the COVID time, so I could not fly to India. I was not a part of the funeral. And somehow that was again a very big crisis in my faith. So I stopped completely with the manifestation things. And, by that time, I already had the more or less a part-time job, and I was somehow secure. I was not fully where I wanted with my finances, but yes, I could buy food and pay the rent of a student hostel in a way, and I was quite happy. And slowly I ended up with a full-time job, but by that time my mother was not here in the physical world anymore. And when I got the 100% job offer, I could not feel happy at all about it. In fact, I felt even miserable, if I can say so. And I had huge health crises, physical setbacks since 2020. I had a major surgery in 2022 and 2 more surgeries in 2023. That's the period when I got into depression. I had 2 burnouts and physical challenges, emotional challenges, relationship falling apart, and everything you can imagine. And that for me was hell. And I questioned everything about my life, everything, to a point where, irrespective of my background of growing up in a spiritual environment, me reading so much about spirituality, about manifestation, law of attraction, I briefly got into tarot readings and understanding ancient religions and theology, philosophy, name it. I got into all of that, and I thought, what is missing? What am I doing wrong for my world to fall apart? And now it was not me against the world, but I felt it's me against the Creator. So it was me against God now. So I went feral, and I looked up at the sky, because that was my understanding of God, that there's someone up in the sky. And I questioned everything. I came to a point where I used to look up and I used to say, I believed in you all my life. In every step, every suffering, every difficulty, every death, every grief, I believed in you. But you have failed. If you exist, you have failed. And this is where I turn my back. And I think, as much as I thought it comes from a place of anger, which was also important, it came more from a place of disappointment. It came from a place of, what more is left to lose? And I could not think of any reason to be alive. Now, again, let me mention, I had beautiful friends and, of course, my 2 brothers and their families and everything. There was so much love that I had around me, but I could not feel it. For me, there was no purpose. There was no reason why I should carry on. Because, and I kept saying this to everyone, I said, my soul feels tired. My soul feels tired, and what I'm having is a spiritual crisis. I don't know. And then some people said it's the dark night of the soul. I think that term was made famous by Carl Jung, if I'm not mistaken, but it's the dark night of the soul. And what happens after this is there's a transformation. But at the same time, I had one physical setback after the other, and all these setbacks were emergencies and surgeries. So they were huge. They were grave situations. And I could not find any reason to wake up in the morning. And I then had what I would say an epiphany, and it felt like somebody had lifted a veil, or my blindfold came off in a way. And I woke up one morning and I could not make sense of anything. I grew up, like I said, in a very peaceful, loving environment. But what I experienced after that was this peace that I'd never felt before, this calmness that I'd never felt before. And it felt like, this is reincarnation. And immediately my faith was back. And the first thing that came to my mind was, oh, I prayed so much that, just take me. I'm done. I'm done. I want out of here. And maybe God does exist and I have died. And the first thing that comes to my mind was, maybe this is what happens when you die. You just carry on and you just don't relate to your past anymore. And I realized what did die or come to an end was this part of my ego that always operated from pain, that operated from living in the past, that operated from everything that went wrong in the past, that operated from, I need to fight to survive. I need to make my life beautiful, but I am responsible for it, and it's like me against the world. That ended. That came to an end, and I could not relate to why I was trying to decipher books when it is so simple. And the realization, which I say was so simple, was that I was trying to find God outside of me all my life. I looked up at the sky and I thought maybe there's something living up there and hell is below our feet and all of that. But the power lies within us. What we worship outside has to exist within us. I became for the first time conscious and aware of my own heartbeat, of my own breathing pattern, of my own system. And I thought, this is pure magic. Me existing is a miracle. What more do I want? And this epiphany, this realization continued and continued and continued. And the people who saw me just a day before that, a miserable woman who's just crying and complaining, and people had to check up on me all the time because they were not aware if I would do something to myself, could not relate. For them, I think it was more surprising than to me, because I was still trying to make sense of what exactly happened. But for them, it was more surprising because they did not know if it's the calm before the storm. And I completely understand. And I'm so grateful I have such wonderful people in my life. And then one of my friends who used to check on me quite regularly, she said, "Are you on any medication?" And I said, "Not anymore. I just don't know what happened, but I've never felt so much taken care of." And the funny thing is, now I know that I was being taken care of all my life. Why was I fighting and struggling and trying to survive when I was taken care of by this supreme source, energy, power, God, universe, whatever you want to call it? I was being taken care of by this beautiful source, this place of unconditional love and forgiveness. Why was I fighting? I was against my own self all my life, and I did not even notice it. I was told self-love is setting boundaries and doing this and doing that and spoiling yourself, blah, blah, blah. But now, all of a sudden, it's like I have all this information from inside that, oh my God, self-love is such a beautiful, forgiving thing. Love itself, I think we have misunderstood the concept and the word love. It's not about how much you give and how much I give. It's not a transaction. It's so beautiful. And what I could feel was just this embrace and this openness and this acceptance. And then to know I had it all my life. So, of course, it took me a while to normalize that feeling. And now I'm being a bit ecstatic about it. But it was not this high. It was just this stillness. It was this a very neutral but surreal feeling. I don't know how to describe it in words. But that happened overnight. And what I realized was I was born new. The entire name of the channel made sense, and I studied the mind-body connection, and I studied mindset coaching. In 2022, I graduated. I started my channel, but I never posted anything because I had all of that in my intellect. And before I had that surreal moment, before I had that epiphany, I don't know how to call it, but I used to think, okay, what's left to read? What more information do I need? I have it all in my knowledge. Why is it not helping me? And now I can say, even with the coaching that I studied and everything, it was all here. It was all in my intellect. But there were few things that I had to experience. I had to go through it. Like this friend said, the dark night of the soul, if you may call it so. I needed to go through that hell to know exactly what it feels like, and to come out of it and say, I can tell you, I can testify with guarantee that we all are taken care of. The only thing that stops us is us. We are our biggest blockage. When we operate from ego, when we operate from being a victim, when we blame the society and people and situations and what has happened in our life, when we blame that, we give those situations power, and we keep repeating the same cycle because we feed into it. And once we know that, hey, I am not that, I am not my past, I am not my limitation, I am not even my name, I am not even my religion, I am not even my bloodline, I am not even this skin color, I'm not even this gender. I am beyond that. I am beyond the labels. I am not who had the burnout. I am not who had the depression. I am not the one whose parents passed on. I am beyond that. And the most beautiful thing that came out of this experience was the closeness that I felt with my parents. And I have to say, and I hope my brothers are watching this, I have not even experienced that when they were in this physical world. Even though, like I mentioned at the start of the video, that I grew up with a lot of love and I was extremely close to my parents. We were all like this close-knit family, this fabric, and extremely close to each other. Even then, I never felt this closeness. And now when I step out, I feel everything around me is just love. There's this unconditional forgiveness, there's love, there's peace, and there's no trying. That's the best part. I think when I was trying all the manifestation techniques and the law of attraction and this and that, it was trying. It was trying desperately to get results. It was trying desperately to have that experience because I thought something needs to be fixed. I need to experience it. And there's nothing wrong with it. But if you understand your consciousness, if you understand your higher self, you don't need techniques. You don't need anything. In fact, the meditations that I do now, you may call it non-meditation in a way, because it's just closing my eyes and trying to get back into that state of knowing who I truly am. So shedding all the layers of all my identifications in a way, shedding all of that experience from the day and getting back to just being still. That's the most beautiful meditation. That's the only meditations I do now. Before, I used to do affirmations, looping affirmations, playing affirmations overnight, and journaling. And I still journal because I love writing, but scripting and the 365 method and the moon water and affirmations on the bottle of water and drinking that, done all of that. And if I look back, I cannot relate to who I was. And the shift happened so beautifully. Recently, when I was talking to a good friend of mine, and I said, I feel so grateful that I've had such beautiful relationship with men in my life. I've had such wonderful men. So I was talking about my exes. You can count on your finger. I don't have so much experience. But she said, are you kidding me? Weren't these the men who just damaged your life and they spoiled your life and this and that? And I said, that's the beauty of it. When I look back, I just feel so grateful for everything. And I now see the other perspective. So it's like somebody switched my lenses. And even if I look back, the people that I thought wronged me, I can't think of them like that anymore. I think, oh my God, they were always there for me. In fact, they loved me. I could not see it. that's where personal accountability comes into play. And again, not being bitter with them, not being bitter with myself or my past choices or anything, but just to know I am not that version of me. I am not that me. I am new. Like I said, it's like a reincarnation in this lifetime. And that's the time when I said, oh, this now makes sense. And this is exactly what I want to go forward with. And I'm so glad I had made all the social media channels and whatnot with the name Anuyu. And I thought it all had its purpose. And now is the time, because now when I coach and when I talk about life, when I make these videos, they have my own personal experience, but it comes from a place of truth and certainty, because this is the only thing that you need to know who you are truly. That's the only thing you need. And of course, in the future, maybe we talk about manifestation content and law of attraction and this and that. I have my views about those topics, because I don't want people to go through that journey that I went through, where it's tedious and it's about tools and techniques. If you just tap into that source energy that you have, if once you get the glimpse and taste of that higher consciousness, you will always run back to it. The world will not be able to affect you anymore, because you are aware now. You are awake now. You have chosen, and that's the beauty of it, that it's been given to all of us. No one is denied of it. We just need to let it shine. We need to let it operate. And so you cannot operate from two states at the same time. You're either operating from your higher self or you're operating from your ego. Until and unless you shed that. Watch my video on higher self and ego. I think I've done that. That could be the name of the video. But this is what happens. You're either operating from your ego or your higher self. Until you put the ego in the background and you let the higher self be the operating power, you get a taste of it, you will always come back to it, because it's the most forgiving, unconditionally loving place. And it is so beautiful and so calm to be in that state. Imagine where you're not bothered by what happens around you. In fact, you don't even have to try. It's your normal. You go around and you just have beautiful experiences in life. Who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want to be happy and at peace? The only thing that stops you is your ego or your conditioning, however you want to label it. You have to learn to surrender. You have to learn how to unlearn, to let go of your identifications, to shed your old skin and really let that past go. And I still remember my past. That's the funny thing about it, but I don't relate to it. It's like a movie I've seen or a novel that I've read. So I can tell you about the characters that played in this movie, and I know I was the script writer all along. My life is my movie, so is your life. And you are the director, the script writer, and everything. You assign roles to people. And the moment I realized that, even the people that I couldn't get along all of a sudden transformed. And I realized it's the lens through which I decide to look at them. How am I assigning character to these people? Because if I'm the director, I'm the scriptwriter of my movie, I get to choose how someone shows up in my reality. So tell me, there's no place for fear or judgment or anything. Yes, maybe some inconvenience does pop up now and then. I observe it and I try to understand my participation in it and how would I want this in my favor. Then I don't sit and do any manifestation techniques and this and that. It's just that awareness, and that's enough. Getting back to your higher self, your higher consciousness. No one will be able to stop you. And that was the entire reason why I then started with the coaching Anuyu, because I want people to experience what I have experienced and what I am experiencing at the moment, where even the sky cannot limit me. And it cannot limit anyone, to be honest. The only one stopping you is yourself. You have to remember, change is the only constant. Change is required. And when you change, you don't pretend. You're not pretending to be something. You're not faking it till you're making it. You are really becoming a new version of you. It's given to you every moment. You have the choice. Every moment of your life, every millisecond, you have the choice to be a new version of you. It requires your conviction. No one can do it for you. The past might pop up, it might remind you of something. We don't go back to it. Because I'm a new me, a new version of me, I do not relate to that. And again, it was not me pretending, it was me knowing. I did not have to fake it or believe in it. No, it's my knowing, it's my truth. I am not that. Even my body now, scientifically speaking, it's not what it used to be yesterday. My mind is not the one that it used to be yesterday. My blood cells, anything and everything, my hair, my skin, my nails, everything is changing. We just don't notice it, but it is changing in a certain speed. Why don't we get to change? Who stops us from that? My body is not what it used to be 20 years ago. So why do I remember that 20 years ago, what I used to be, and I call that my lifetime sentence? Why? No one is doing it for me. I am doing it to myself. That's where you take your power back. And remember, everything, good, bad, ugly, everything, we are the reason why we experience it. There's no blaming, shaming, nothing. Acknowledge it. Take your power back. So I think this video is getting too long, so I might have to stop very soon. So yes, that's the entire purpose and the reason why we have Anuyu. For me, it's very important to have this one-on-one conversation with people and to understand them individually. And then we work with few resources, but it all comes back to you. I don't give you techniques and methods and this and that. We use simple tools now and then, depending on your situation, but we mostly talk about getting back to our true state. And you don't have to believe in God and all of that to really experience it or have the coaching. I am a big fan of science. I mean, come on, I studied medicine, and even now I'm a big fan of the human mind and how it functions. And so irrespective of your background, we can definitely work. I do single calls, and I also would like to talk about the package that I have of 28 days, and you get 2 calls a week and some exercises for every day for 28 days. So that is really reprogramming you, and I help you to get into the new version of you. Anyway, my dears, thank you so much for listening to my story. If you're new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe. I would love to see you around, and also do check my other social media handles. I would love to have you guys over again. Sending you lots of love. Bye.